So, 2 weeks ago, I introduced this new project, the idea of creating three-dimensional characters that could be used for animation. I had you watch the Steam video showing the little characters that were made of all different materials. Had you collect materials over these last 2 weeks. And now I wanted to just talk a little bit more. So you watched the making of some of the Tim Burton movies to understand how these three-dimensional objects end up being in animation and how it's not just always drawing on a piece of paper and then computer graphics, that there's this whole field of animation that is three-dimensional as well. So even if you're starting on paper with drawings, usually the next step is to create a three-dimensional version. Usually plasticine is actually the media that is most used by animators because plasticine doesn't ever get hard, so that you're able to go back and play with it and to move it. And so that's the idea of starting with a two-dimensional image and then going three-dimensional. In this case, we're going to start with the three-dimensional that could then be used in an animated sequence. So first of all, underneath careers and under Tim Burton work, here's where you watch the videos. I've added character design. So one of the coolest field trips that we ever did was there was a Tim Burton show in Toronto, and we took the kids to go see it. It was at the Toronto International Film Festival location, and it was really cool. So the first room was looked a lot like this, that it's just sketches and sketches and sketches and doodles, a lot of it coming from high school, that this is what this guy was like, that he was always just doodling these characters. You'll notice down here, these are just torn pieces of paper that have all just been stuck together, because this is how he worked. Whenever he was bored, he would just start doodling and come up with these characters. You start recognizing, you see this character here that ends up being Catwoman here. I like these guys, these little space looking dudes. Famously, Edward Scissorhands, the idea of meshing mechanical body parts with human body parts was super cool. And then I'm down here like Robot Boy. So Tim Burton's process is to start with the sketch, and then the sketch becomes the object, where we would be looking at it the opposite way. What can you do to inspire ideas? And unfortunately, for a lot of students, your idea of getting inspiration means to Google stuff and to go look at what already exists. And that's a problem, because in order to go into any of these post-secondary programs, you need to have portfolios. And this project is a great portfolio project. It is going to look so good if you use it to get into post-secondary school. And one of the things that happens is kids will get caught plagiarizing in their interviews. So even if I don't recognize something, if the professors have seen something before, or it's a problem. So by creating your own three-dimensional characters yourself and then using them to inspire the character, that ends up being an original piece. It's also just kind of fun to put this stuff together. So I wanted you to collect the materials and then put them together into, I'm calling it the 3D character project. So here's Fred. I made Fred yesterday, and I was collecting stuff for a while. So his head is Keurig coffee pods. I was feeling pretty guilty about not recycling them anyways. And then this metal, I don't even know what this metal thing is for. I just found it in my toolbox. I intentionally used two different screws for the eyes. It's much more interesting if the objects aren't completely symmetrical, just changing it up a bit. This is the lid of a cat food can, and I've actually used the tab at the back to attach the two pieces together. His whole body is that hanging plant wire that I showed you in a previous video. And I'm really disappointed that I just bailed on the body. I took a tin can, the cat food can again, kind of smucked it up, where I wish I had spent a lot more time. My next guy, I'll put together cooler stuff. And just a drawing over here to say you could see how you could start with this, and then it would start to develop into a cool character. All right, so the learning goals, again, for art projects, students use a variety of strategies to generate ideas and develop plans for creation of artwork. Understanding where does inspiration come from and how it can start by just recycling stuff you find around your house or finding things off the lawn in the backyard. Using exploration, experimentation, and then going back, putting things together, trying them different ways to get your ideas. So once again, you've had 2 weeks to collect this stuff together. Now, if you haven't already done so, start putting it together into your three-dimensional being. So you may choose to create one single really complicated project, or if you've got a bunch of Freds, maybe you're going to do several simpler models. Just remember to ensure that you work safely with whatever materials you're using. So I wore glasses the whole time because of the wire moving around. I also was cutting into tin cans, into metal, so always make sure to protect your eyes. And if you're using any strong adhesives like really strong glues, make sure that there's in a well-ventilated space. You don't want to be breathing in those fumes. So what's the success criteria for this project? I wrote there are not a lot of guidelines here because there's such a vast array of possibilities for this project. Are you taking rocks and pine cones and sticks? Are you using mechanical things? Is your dad got a garage in the back of the car where he fixes cars and you're using carburetors? I don't even know if that's a thing, right? It's going to be different for all of you depending on what your access to materials is. So that's why I said it could be one very complicated thing. It could be several simpler things. Figure it out. So basically the success criteria for evaluation is the more complicated, the better. So Fred would be an example of a level 1. Sorry, Fred. Basically because it's only got like, I don't know, 5 different pieces to them, and I made them in about 20 minutes. After you assembling all the stuff, it takes a while to put it together, but he's an example of a simpler project. So have fun with this, get really creative with it. Do not go on to the internet and Google, just figure it out.